Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to round 25 coverage of the Zurich 1953 Candidates Tournament. Before I get started on the video, just a quick program note. This is actually the second version of this video that I've done. I did one about a week ago and then I was listening to it and there were a number of glitches in the audio, and also the audio was out of sync with the video. So I deleted that one and I decided to create a new copy. So this is a newer version of that video if you've already seen it. If the game looks familiar, it may be because you've already seen the video. But anyway, let's get on with it. In round 25, there was a lot of action at the top boards. I will give a summary at the end of this video. But those games, although they were decisive, weren't particularly interesting, kind of murky. So I picked this game to take a look at, the game of the round. It's with the white pieces. We have Laszlo Szabo facing Yuri Averbakh with the black pieces. So let's have a look at the players. Szabo here is a Hungarian grandmaster. There's a picture of him from the time of the tournament. And there's one taken 8 years later when he's not staring directly at the camera. So a strong grandmaster for many years, not having the greatest of tournaments, but anyway, he plays some interesting chess here. And his opponent, Yuri Averbakh, with the black pieces. Let's find here's a picture of Averbakh from 1953. Strong Russian grandmaster, famous for the Averbakh variation in the King's Indian defense, and also as of today, as of the time I'm recording this video, he is 93 years old and is the oldest living grandmaster. So he's still around today, one of the two players from the tournament that are still alive. So let's get on with the game. Szabo with the white pieces kicks off with e4, and we get c5, the Sicilian defense, knight f3, knight c6, and bishop to b5. So this is the Rossolimo variation. This is a variation that has, it's come back into popularity recently. It was considered a bit of a sideline not too long ago, but it's being played more and more often. White is putting some pressure on the knight and maybe threatening to take and damage the pawn structure. In fact, let's see, Averbakh plays g6 here, which is one of the main moves. d6 and e6 can also be played. And in this position in the game, Magnus Carlsen faced Judith Polgar in this position a couple of years ago, and he just chose to take the knight, which is one of the top two choices here, going ahead and damaging the pawn structure. Szabo has a different plan. He chooses to castle. This is the other main plan in this position, and he's just going for a quiet setup. He's going to get a closed Sicilian after bishop g7. He continues with knight c3. A more active setup would be to play c3 and then aim for d4 immediately. But he has ideas. Laszlo has a slightly different plan in mind. So d6 is played. And as I said, we're getting into, after d3, closed Sicilian. So the pawns are not meeting each other in the center, and they're not exchanging, at least not right away. But instead, white is building up for a slow attack and attempting to take over the center in a little bit. So development continues, bishop to d7. Now there's no point in taking the knight here. There will just black would just take back with the bishop, and there won't be any damage to the pawns. So any possibility of damaging black's pawn structure has been bypassed in this variation. But like I said, Szabo had a different plan. He starts with this move knight d5, an interesting maneuver. And it provokes the move e6 to kick the knight back. Maybe this pawn here will become a weakness that white can exploit. And he repositions the knight to e3. So this is part of his plan. And now knight g to e7. Black continues developing and also keeps this diagonal open for his dark squared bishop. So both sides are doing fine at this point. It's rated about even. The chess engine at this point likes to continue with the move knight to c4. Which is interesting. It hits this pawn here. The d6 pawn became weak after the move e6. And some interesting play would ensue after that. After knight c4, the engine is recommending queen c7, just defending the pawn. If you push ahead, The knight can hop into d6, and this is a bit of an embarrassment. So anyway, queen to c7. And play would continue from here. It's an interesting position. Interesting position. Maybe the knight will get chased away. What's funny about it is that the knight has gone here, 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 and here. So there's this opening rule about how you never move a piece twice in the opening. Here it's moved 4 times, but it seems to be a perfectly valid position for white. Anyway, Szabo had a different plan. He was going with the idea of playing c3 now. And so he's trying to get in this move d4 just under his own terms and with his knights repositioned here. Black ignores this idea and just castles, and white pushes on with d4. So here's your tactical quiz opportunity for this video. This move d4 is not a huge mistake, but maybe a slight mistake, and there's a tactic that black has to take advantage of it. So if you want to pause the video and see if you can figure it out. It's a fairly common type of tactic, so I think maybe you can spot this one if you put your mind to it. Okay, I'm going to give the answer away now. Black here can play knight takes d4, and in fact he did play it. So Averbakh spotted the tactic and played this immediately. Now the first point is, well, this bishop is loose here, so if white exchanges, then instead of taking back immediately, what black can do is grab the knight over here with check, forcing this reply, and then grab the bishop. And so in this line, black has just won a pawn. This d pawn is missing, and a couple of pieces have been traded off, and so that's really good for black. So that's the main idea. Szabo figured out a better reply. Well, after knight takes d4, there's another possibility here. You could try taking with the pawn, but then black can grab the bishop, and he's also won a pawn in this line as well. So he just has ended up a pawn up in both of these lines. So Szabo, perhaps taken by surprise by this move, still manages to collect his wits and find the best possible response, which is to take with the knight. And now after black takes back, takes with the pawn, he played bishop takes, exchanging this guy off. And now there's a choice here. Queen takes d7 could have been played, but Averbakh chose to take the knight. I think either reply is valid. Queen takes d7 is rated a little bit higher by the chess engine. Here, let's take a look at that. Queen takes b7. Now this pawn, it's taken back. The pawns are even, but it looks like the move f5 here to undermine the center is going to leave black with an advantage. The way Averbakh played it, he took here, and then after bishop takes d7, he took the knight. And this also leaves the material even, because a queen can take on d6, get the pawn back this way. He takes f2 check, rook takes, and now knight to c6. So if we pause and think about the position for a moment, we have 3 against 4 over here and 3 against 2 over here. So the material is even. Black still has a slight advantage, possibly because of this pawn. There's an isolated pawn he might go after, and there's this pin on the bishop. But white should be okay with correct play, and he starts off with the move bishop to f4. So this defends the queen and unpins his bishop. So now the bishop on d7 is free to move. And so Averbakh plays the move queen b6, obviously getting the queen out of the way with the idea of maybe bringing the rook over here to pin the bishop again. And Bronstein has a funny comment at this point. Actually, what Szabo played at this point was the move rook to d1, just maintaining the bishop there. And what Bronstein's comment was, he says, it's time for white to end this foolishness. Take the knight. I'll show you. Take the knight on c6, bishop takes c6, and then put the bishop here on g5, trying to control the square, and get out of trouble that way. So I just thought that was a funny comment. Time for white to end this foolishness. But this is still a playable move. It's a bit tricky, however. I've noticed this, though. Sometimes grandmasters will try and maintain a piece in an awkward position just because it has some influence on the opponent's camp. And, they trust in their ability to calculate the way through all the variations. But I think maybe Szabo missed an idea here. So rook a to d8 was played immediately. And now he's following up with queen to c7. So he's getting the queen out of the way of the pin, but the bishop is still pinned because the knight here, the rook. The rook on d1 is still unprotected, so the bishop is still pinned. But this could lead to some exchanges, and eventually I think he's hoping he's expecting this to work out. And there's just one surprising reply. This happens right at this particular point. So this is your second tactical quiz opportunity in this video. So it's Black's turn to move, and he has a tactic here which is pretty interesting and surprising. So why don't you pause the video and see if you can figure it out. Okay, what Averbakh played is the move bishop to d4, just interfering with the defense of the bishop by the rook. So now there's a threat of taking the queen and then just winning a piece. So pretty interesting tactic. Before we go into that, let's take a look at what Averbakh was probably expecting. He was probably expecting the immediate trade here. Queen takes, bishop takes, and then this rook is under attack. The bishop is still defended by the rook, and best play. Well, if the rook moves out of the way, then he's got a dominating position here with the bishops. Once again, the bishop d4 tactic rears its head there as a way to save it, but leaving to at least an equal position and possibly a winning position for white. So that's probably what he was expecting. No, but Averbakh throws a spanner in the works with this move, bishop to d4. Like I said, it's an interference tactic. It just interferes with the support of the bishop here. Bishop is not hanging just yet, but there's a threat of taking the queen and then grabbing the bishop. So really, white has no option other than accepting the sacrifice. Yeah, there's no other good move here. He could consider taking with the rook, but in this line he ends up down some material. Rook takes, knight takes, and now queen takes, just to exchange the queens off, and grabbing back here. If he grabs back the knight right away, I guess the bishop goes. So bishop to d6 here, hitting the rook. Okay, this is kind of a complicated line. Rook takes, bishop takes, king takes, and now you get the and rook takes d4. At the end of all of this, black ends up a pawn up. This might have been a way to play it, and a lot of material has been reduced, and the extra pawn over here. Black will still play for a win, but white has drawing chances. That was one way to play it. It had the advantage of reducing the amount of material on the board, but it did leave black with an edge. No, the move that Szabo played here is actually the top choice of the engine. He just takes the bishop with the pawn, and after this, queen takes c7. We get the queen trade, and now the rook can take the bishop. So let's pause for a second again. Bishop to g3. Let's put this move in. So now it's another interesting point. This pawn is weak and actually can be taken right now. And after the pawn is taken, black has the advantage. He's got one pawn up, but I don't know. It's a bit of a complicated position after rook takes d4, rook takes d4, knight takes d4. This bishop might get some activity. There's bishop to e5 is an idea here, and gaining a tempo on the knight and taking squares away from the king. So it's not entirely a clear position. It's a slight edge for black, but not clear if he's winning. So Averbakh tried to go for more after the move bishop to g3. By the way, the Chess Engine recommendation right here is rook f to d8. So it also doesn't like taking the pawn immediately, but it doubles rooks and then grabs the pawn that way. Now what Averbakh played was the move f5. And I expect he was thinking he could still double rooks and grab this pawn at some later date, and he just wanted to avoid certain lines where his king is kind of cramped and the bishop comes to f6. So he's getting this pawn out in advance. And unfortunately, Szabo has a good reply that caught him off guard here, and that's the move d5. Now, it could be that that black was just relying on the pin here and thinking he could just take the f-pawn here, because if pawn takes knight right away, then we have rook takes rook. No problem. So so from that point of view, you might think you could take the f-pawn, but it just doesn't work because there's a series of moves here that all come with check. So if you grab the pawn, there's a new variation. Grab the pawn, then white can take this rook off with check. King takes is the only move, and then he can unpin with check, moving this rook from d1 to f1 with check. The king has to move, and king e7, I guess, is best, and then he can grab the knight. So he's just going to be a piece up here. And there's not enough. There's a couple pawns here, but it's not enough to compensate. The pawns are all weak, and they're going to fall, and white will go on to win that game. So suddenly the tables have turned. Black was winning, but he didn't see this move d5 coming. And after d5, it's not a win anymore. It's just even position. He takes the pawn, and white takes back with the rook. Black wants to keep the rooks on. He's trying to keep his winning chances alive. Plays rook d to f7, and now e takes f5. Rook takes f5. The rooks are going to come off anyway. Rook takes. Cancel that. Oh, he took with the other rook. Rook here. Rook takes, and the rook dropped back to d7. Oh, cancel. The rook went forward to d7. And then this rook dropped back to f7. I think black is just giving up here and admitting this is going to be a draw. The material is even and it's symmetric. There is a bishop versus a knight, but neither side has any particular advantage. There's a couple more moves played. King f8, a3, and then a draw was agreed at this point. So that was how the game ended. An interesting struggle, a couple of little imprecisions by Szabo, and that Averbakh spotted and took advantage of him, and then just a single move by Averbakh gave the advantage back and ended in a draw. So as I mentioned, there was a lot of action at the top boards. In round 25, Smyslov and Reshevsky faced each other directly. Smyslov with the white pieces and Reshevsky with the black. Smyslov a half a point ahead, would have been content with a draw probably, but Reshevsky really needed a win. Not only was he a half point behind, but he also had one fewer game left in the rest of the tournament because he still had an off day coming up, a rest day coming up. So he went. He played a kind of a funny strategy. He got an interesting position. He played some new moves in the opening, and around move 25, though, he just stopped doing anything active and just shuffled his pieces back and forth. Now this gave Smyslov some time to get his forces organized, and then around move 35, he finally thought he saw a chance and pushed forward on the king's side to open things up and complicate things. Bronstein puts forward the theory that maybe he was just killing time until he got to near the time control, which is at move 40, and hoped to complicate things near the time control and catch Smyslov off guard. But whatever he was trying, it didn't work. Smyslov defended, responded correctly to the aggression, which was a little bit unsound, and managed to turn the tables on Reshevsky and win the game. And then the other top player, the player in the leader group, was Bronstein, and he played in Geller. Geller against Bronstein, he had the black pieces. He just miscalculated at that game, and he had an okay position, and he just lost because of a miscalculation. So in the last two rounds, Smyslov has defeated both Keres and Reshevsky, two of his top contenders, two of the top four players in the tournament. Smyslov defeated them directly, and then Bronstein kind of self-destructed. So So in the last 2 rounds, Smyslov has scored 2 wins, and all of his 3 main rivals have lost a game, 2 of them to Smyslov directly. So this basically puts the tournament out of reach. After 25 rounds, if we look at the score here, let's see, Smyslov is at 15.5 points. His closest pursuer is still Reshevsky, but Reshevsky is down at 14 points. With only 5 games left and with a bye round coming up for Reshevsky, it's just not likely that he's going to be able to catch him. Bronstein is in 3rd place with 13.5 points, and Keres is in 4th place with 13 points. So that's how it stands after 25 rounds. But there's still 5 more rounds of good chess to go and a fight for 2nd place. So stay tuned, and I will bring you coverage of round 26. See you then. Bye.